Hi, Professor Lambert. I'm Shohil, student at UST, Hong
Uh-huh.
Kong University of Science and Technology. And I'm delighted that you came here, you gave your time today. So can you run through us about your background and what you're currently doing?
Sure. My name is Lambert Chan. I'm the professor at City University of Hong Kong. I'm the deputy program leader of the BBA Global Business in CityU. And one of my courses is Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship. This is a course co-taught with Hong Kong UST, Professor Erwin Huang. And that's how we met. And now I'm here to discuss about ESG with you.
Yeah, sure. So can you run through us about your role in GBUS in CTU and how your program is different from other programs across Hong Kong?
Sure. The City UG bus is relatively new. I think it's about 8 years ever since when we started, 8 years ago. It was initially targeted to students who are aspire to be a global leader. So we want to train our students to have a global perspective, and that's why we introduce a lot of courses related to a global perspective. For example, we encourage our students to go for 3 exchanges. One is mandatory and the other 2 are optionals. And we also arrange a subsidized study tour, course-based tour for them to learn in overseas country. Recently, we went to Singapore, we went to East Europe, and etc. And another interesting aspect of our GBUS program is we collaborate a lot with other universities. For example, HKUST is one of the universities that we work with. Another perspective is from the US universities. We sponsor our students to go to MIT Data Science Lab and also Harvard Summer School for them to study for 1 semester. And also we collaborated with Columbia University, where they would be able to study in Hong Kong for 2 years, and then they go to New York to continue their study for another 2 years. Then they will get 2 degrees. One is from CityU, the other one is from Columbia. So it's quite an interesting new development for our GBUS program.
That's pretty good, and I happened to be part of one of the courses that was like between CTU and HKUST,
Yes.
and that's a really good thing that there are courses which collaborates with different universities, so that students can meet other students from different universities to see the perspective of different students and their thought processes. And another thing you mentioned about exchanges and stuff, I think it is pretty important nowadays to have that kind of exposure. I personally also am going for exchange this summer to London.
That's great.
And I feel like UST is also like really making its students be into that, and our partnerships with other universities in America, UK, Europe, is that actually gives students more confidence when they go abroad, and I feel like that's a really good way to live the university life.
Exactly. I always envy our students these days because they have so many opportunities to go abroad, to study abroad, to stay abroad, to live abroad.
Yeah.
When I was studying, like I was studying in University of Toronto,
Yeah.
I rarely have this kind of chance. That's why when I'm now leading the BBA Global Business program, I always encourage our students to take full advantage of these kind of exchange program where when you live there, like instead of going for a sightseeing, you just basically experience the country on a superficial condition. But when you live there, study there, you actually have a totally different experience. You grow up much faster. It's definitely a much rewarding experience for a student.
That's true. Hats off to UST and CTU both for providing this kind of opportunity to the students. Moving on to your experience after college, you have been across multiple different sectors, starting from telecommunications at Hong Kong Telecommunications, then going to banking sector, then going to luxury retail sector. That's pretty, I would say that's so many different sectors packed into one box. So how has that like helped you in so many years that you have been into different sectors? How much had it added value to yourself, and how much do you think is working in different kinds of field is beneficial for a person?
I think it's a lot to do with my own interest and passion, because I'm a person who would like to try new things. I can get bored easily, so that's why I don't really want to stay in one business
Yeah.
for the entire life. So that's why I do not want to position myself as a product specialist where I grow vertically from a junior position to the senior position. But I do want to expand myself horizontally where I have multiple exposures. That's why I put that into practice when I grow my career or plan my career. I started my career in telecom industry where I started as a junior marketing executive. And then I stayed there for 10 years and I grew up to general manager position, which at that time was the youngest general manager in the telecom industry. So I thought, well, maybe I should try something new instead of staying there as a telecom expert. So I expanded to be in the tourism industry. I joined the Hong Kong Tourism Board. I stayed there for 6 years. There I had a lot of exposure because it's not a pure commercial organization. It's partly funded by the government. So I had the exposure of commercial as well as a lot of government initiatives. So I really enjoyed that because I had the opportunity to launch attractions like Ong Ping 360, the Hong Kong Disneyland, the Symphony of Lights that you see every night at 8 o'clock. So I did enjoy that part for 6 years. And then I thought, well, maybe I should also continue and move on. So I also joined the financial institution, the DBS Bank and the Citibank, where I had the credit cards business and the MPF business. And then I joined the luxury retail. I was lucky that at that time, Hong Kong opened up to more tourism, where they have independent visitors, especially coming from China. So that's why it actually boosted a lot about the Hong Kong retail industry, especially the retail, the luxury part. So the company grew rapidly. I joined the TSL Jewelry, where I was managing the Hong Kong and the China business as well as the Malaysia and Japan business. I stayed there for 6 years, and then I somehow reflected on myself that I've been working for other people, trying to help them make more money for the past like 20, 30 years. So I thought maybe I should do something more meaningful in my life, or I should contribute myself back to the society. So therefore, I resigned from that full-time position. So I started to explore about a slash career.
That's a very big move.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting move because a lot of time when you are in a certain position, people are quite reluctant to change. But for me, I really enjoy that kind of challenge. And also I thought I should not just stay there to help other people to continue making money, but rather I try to help the society. So I was invited to join UNICEF to head the Hong Kong operations. I was the chief executive in UNICEF. I was responsible for the fundraising and the advocacy of children's rights. After a couple of years, I decided to continue myself in the education field because at that time I thought maybe there is only one Lambert Chan and there's only 24 hours a day. So how can I maximize or multiply my impact to the society? So maybe education is the answer. So I thought maybe I should change my role again to be an educator, where I would be able to pass on my experience and knowledge to the next generation, where they would be able to multiply the core values that I hold. So therefore, I changed to teach in Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and then I moved on to Hong Kong U, and now I'm with CityU.
CityU,
And
yeah.
also, of course, co-teaching in the Hong Kong UST as well.
Hong Kong USC, that's great. I mean, when you're working in a certain field, you're thinking a bit narrow. You don't know, but when you're going into different environments, your perspectives kind of changes. And I think it's very important for a leader to think in multiple ways, to make decisions that can affect multiple sectors. So coming into, there's one thing which a lot of people are talking about nowadays of sustainability and ESG. And I feel that this particularly, I feel, is very important because it needs the help of all the sectors to work together to solve one kind of solution. So that's why I see a lot of commercials, I see a lot of work being done in Hong Kong and beyond about sustainability by multiple different kinds of companies. So could you give us an insight of when did you first encounter sustainability when you were working, and could you give us any experience in such way?
Yeah, I think ESG and sustainability, these are the buzzwords recently being like sort of
Yeah.
pop up and
Yeah.
people talk about it.
Yeah.
In the past, like when I was young, when I was working in the telecom industry or even in the banking industry, people did talk about that, but they keep just talking.
Talking,
about it.
talking, yeah. Yeah, it's a checkbox that
Yeah,
we just
exactly.
have to complete.
So they just
Yeah.
think, oh, okay, these are important things. We should be doing something good for the society. We should be investing into some social impact
Yeah.
or doing some charity work. I mean, these are the basic thing that we used to do when I was working in the bank or in the telecom industry. Of course, we say, green is important. That's why we encourage people to use less paper statements. For example, in telecom industry, we have millions of customers, right? We print out millions of pieces of paper. Like we use up all these to do the bill to the customers. We talk about how about we switch to electronic version through email, through SMS, instead of printing paper bills. So these are some initiatives that we put behind, but they are not in a big scale until probably recently, especially for the big companies where they face regulatory requirements. Especially if they are the listed companies in Hong Kong, where it's actually a mandatory requirement for them to file
nowadays.
the ESG reports.
Yes.
Then people are starting, what should I do? I mean, should I be setting aside a certain amount of dollars for helping supporting a charity, or should we be doing some green initiative or doing some staff motivation, that kind of stuff, the ESG related things? So people started talking about it more recently because of the regulatory requirement. But I think recently some sectors of the commercial world are moving faster than the others. Say, for example, even in the jewelry industry, when I was working for TSL Jewelry, we talk about how to make sure the processing of the jewelry is of environmental friendly. Because when we dye the gold, there are a lot of pollution, water pollution in the production of the jewelry, or when the escarification or the extracts of the diamonds from the ground is also hurting the environment. So more and more people are talking about how are we going to do something to prevent that. When we are doing business, we try to avoid damaging the environment. So yeah, some industries are getting more attention to it. Even the NGOs. So for example, I was working with UNICEF. We talk about how can we change the perception about green financing and change the perception about fundraising into green financing. Instead of talking to the people that can you donate $1 million for me to do some sanitation work in some less developed country, we would present the case to the investor by issuing a green bond and ask them to invest in it, invest in the future, invest into the future of people, invest in the future of the environment. So I think the attitude actually started to change recently in some sectors of the community.
So like some sectors are paying more attention to this nowadays,
Yes.
but some are like 50-50. But do you think that's quite natural, or do you think like all sectors should start paying more attention, or what's your thought about that?
I think, of course, ideally, everybody should have that kind of a mentality, like how to contribute back to the environment, to save the environment, or to even like not just ESG is not just environmental, right? It's social and governance. I think these are all good things, but the challenge is education or the awareness of the importance is crucial. Because if the industry or the practitioner are not aware of such a needs, they don't see a need to do such work. Just like I'm now doing a research project with a bank recently, because they actually commissioned one project to my students, the MBA students, to work on a green finance project, like to identify the needs for sustainability products for the bank. We had conducted research in different sectors, like for example, construction sector, retail sector, hospitality sectors. There are differences in level of awareness among practitioners. I would say most of the practitioners, they do heard about this ESG initiative, but most people do not see a real need to do that. So that's the issue. So if they don't see a need, it's hard for them to actually coordinate to push it together. So that's why the bank was also organizing some seminars to help the practitioner to understand more about the specific needs of that particular sector, so that to generate that kind of requirement from the demand side.
That's true. So one more thing, like ESG, like it's environment, social, and governance. According to you, like for a company, how much importance does a company should give to all three of them? Should all of them be equal, or does this vary from sectors?
Well, I think all three are important, but I think it can vary among different sectors or even different companies. As I said, some companies like the jewelry company, the leather company, because of the process of production, they do have some impact on the environment. That's why E is important to them. But for some companies which have a lot of regulatory or compliance issues that they have to observe, say for example, the financial institutions, the banks, compliance is so important. I mean, governance is definitely important.
So they will lean towards governance
exactly.
more.
So if it's a small company versus a big company, a listed company, the level of sophistication in terms of governance is also different. So I would say all three are very important, but they might vary according to the size of the companies and the sectors of the companies.
Oh, so it's quite natural for different companies to put more pressure into a particular field in comparison.
Yes, I think it also depends on the vision of the board or the CEO.
The vision of the board, yeah.
Because some CEO might have a certain passion on certain areas. Say, for example, in the past, I worked with some companies. They do place a lot on the staff well-being. So they organize a lot of staff welfare, staff engagement activities. These are very important ESG initiatives as the social part. But not all companies would pay the same level of attention. So I think it really depends on the CEO or the board, the strategic direction.
And I feel like nowadays the government every year they are putting in more regulations and they're in a way pressurizing and forcing companies to pay more attention
Yes.
to ESG and overall. So, but there is demand for this sector, but in terms of supply, there is not enough individuals or people in the field out there to do something in this sector. Do you think that is a problem nowadays, and how can we solve it?
Yeah, I think so. As I said, the general awareness is there, but how to move beyond general awareness, how to deepen the understanding of the needs for the different initiatives for the ESG. I think that's still a long way to go. Of course, there are other initiatives. Say, for example, there are professional training for ESG planner. There are organizations training individuals or companies to focus or to do more on ESG. Of course, that can be done. I think more public recognition on the importance is also important. And for example, one of my students, he recently graduated from GBUS. He actually started a new startup on ESG reporting.
Oh, wow.
He's really talented, and he really wanted to push forward. But I think what he shared with me was the same issue is he proactively approached like 100 companies, but probably only 10% would be interested to listen to what he's saying. And then out of the 10%, probably it's only out of that 5% would be interested to proceed further. So I think there are not enough people to drive through that and to do advocacy and public education. But I think with time, I'm sure this would improve a little bit.
The atmosphere, I feel like, is definitely changing every year with the climate and thing that we are seeing around. Coming to like the banking sector, we have been seeing a lot of talk being held about sustainable finance and green finance in Hong Kong and like Southeast Asia and across the globe. What do you think about this, and how beneficial can this sector be for a place?
I think this is a good initiative because in the past, just like to give you going back to the example that I quoted when I was working for UNICEF. In the past, when we were soliciting donation, we always say, "Oh, can you donate $1 million for us to give to Nepal or some less developed country to do the sanitation, the medical investment, and all these." So the philanthropists, they always say, "Okay, I give you $1 million or $10 million out of their own initiative." But that's it. It's hard for us to sustain because after that they say, "Okay, what kind of impact are you giving me?"
Yeah, it becomes more of like a charity.
Yeah, it's just a charity. It's just an expense that he expends $1 million.
Yeah.
But recently we changed that into a sustainable financing model where they would say, "Okay, I'm going to invest $10 million, but that $10 million will give me a 3% return every year." So they would see that, of course, we are doing that for social cause. We are helping the less developed country to rebuild themselves. But at the same time, I'm getting some money returned back. Although the rate of return, the interest might not be as high as other investments, somehow they are trying to balance off. Like instead of pure expenses, I'm treating it partly as social, charitable donation, but I also would be getting some return. So it's much easier for us to present our case to philanthropists in this sense. So I think that more and more people are talking about that in the charity organization. For other industries like for the banks, of course, they also see that as an opportunity as well. For example, we were talking about construction. Construction, there are a lot of pollution, like when they tear down the buildings, or they control the sound, the noise, and also the pollution when they're doing the construction. They the construct the main contractors need to invest into these kind of mitigation projects, or mitigation investment to prevent this from disturbing the environment. So that can also pose a good potential for the bank to lend them money to do these kind of initiatives. And it's a win-win thing, because the bank would be able to gain profit out of that, and the main contractor would be able to control the pollution against the environment.
That's true. And Hong Kong being like the global financial hub and Asia's finance sector, we have seen that in 2018, I remember the Hong Kong government spent around, I think, 100 billion Hong Kong dollar to move the city towards a green hub for Asia. And I think that ceiling was increased to 200 billion in 2021. And just last year, in the budget last year announced, it's increased to 500 billion Hong Kong dollar. So we see that the government wants to spend on more sustainability projects. Why is the government thinking in this way, and what is the thing that, because we see that other financial hubs like Singapore, Tokyo, Shanghai, they are also trying to come up as a financial hub in terms of sustainability and green economy in general spending. But what is something that will set Hong Kong apart from them? Can you?
Your question is like, why are we doing green from the government perspective?
Yeah, how can the green economy be beneficial for Hong Kong, and what sets us apart from them?
Okay. I think, as you just mentioned, there are cities competing, neighboring cities competing, Tokyo, Singapore, different parts, Shanghai, competing for being the center of finance, center of tourism, center of attracting people, talents to work in that, to live in that city. So besides the general capability of the basic infrastructure, I think the soft side, which is the general environment, the general living standards, the general sense of well-being of living and staying in Hong Kong, is also a competitive advantage. So from the government perspective, of course, they want to enhance the different competitiveness, the different edges of Hong Kong to compete with the other countries or cities. So that's why I think investing in improving Hong Kong basic infrastructure is equally important as improving the soft side of Hong Kong to attract more people to come here. Just like when a lot of people, when they say whether they want to be an expat to come to Hong Kong or become an expert to go to Singapore, people will just say, okay, is it too expensive to stay in Hong Kong, or is there a good social environment or a green space for me to have a more relaxed life after work? So I think that's also an important part to attract talents to come to stay in the city.
That's true. And one more thing you mentioned about green tourism, and as your background, who have worked in Hong Kong Tourism Board, and I feel you had some projects also related to ecotourism. Could you elaborate more on stuff like that, and how can that also be beneficial for the green economy of Hong Kong?
Yes, actually, in Hong Kong is relatively small. It's less than it's about 1,000 square kilometers in size. Yeah. But unfortunately, the built-up area is only probably 20%
like that,
of the area.
Yeah.
So people, when they think about Hong Kong, they will only think about, oh, it's a densely populated city, it's very congested, high-rise buildings, and so on.
Yeah.
Or at most, they will probably say, oh, okay, Hong Kong is a good financial center, it's a hub for the financial services. And also they will probably say, okay, I come to Hong Kong for shopping and dining. I think that's it when you think about Hong Kong. So from the Hong Kong Tourism Board perspective, we want to enlarge people's perspective when they look at Hong Kong. We want to think, we want others to know more about Hong Kong, that there are a lot of areas that are heavily green, green areas. And that is one of the uniqueness of Hong Kong, is that when you stay in the bustling part of Hong Kong, the city center, within 30 minutes, you will be in Saigon.
Yeah,
That is
and
the
that's
most beautiful
very
part
green
of
area.
Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Or within 30 minutes, you will be able to go to Repulse Bay, where you see the
Beaches
the
and
beaches
stuff.
and the ocean. And you will be able to go to Yuen Long and the Green Park on the northwest part of Hong Kong. It's only within 30 minutes at most, because Hong Kong infrastructure is so good in terms of the railways and the transportation. So that's why we wanted to, not just Hong Kong residents, but the tourists, when they come to Hong Kong, not just focusing on the little 20% of the built-up area, but rather to enjoy the tranquility of the rest of Hong Kong. I think that's the most important objectives. And secondly is because there are so many resources in these islands. They are definitely tourism assets. So why should we not try to encourage more people to experience that, rather than just pure come to Hong Kong shopping and dining, right? So,
Yeah,
so
that's
that's
true.
why we wanted to other people to expand their horizon and perspective when they see Hong Kong.
That's true. I mean, Hong Kong is a city which this is what it sets it apart. I mean, when I was also choosing my university, I was like, there are so many universities
Yeah.
out there. Okay, what are the best places to study? And now, okay, Hong Kong is great. Hong Kong is, I think, the only city in the world which has the most number of top 100 universities in one
Oh,
city.
yes, true.
Which is really good, as we see like the university life. But when you see the city, you see too like cyberpunk city, very very futuristic. But it is also in contact with the nature so much, which is so rare out there to see. So I feel like that's really good, and I feel this is also what it will help in the ecotourism even in the future. And now coming to the bad side of ESG and sustainability, things that have been come up of about greenwashing and woke capitalism and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Greenwashing and what, sorry?
Greenwashing and woke capitalism.
More capitalism?
Woke capitalism.
What is woke capitalism?
So it's more of like a new term. So greenwashing and
I know greenwashing, but
woke capitalism is like when something is been used to, as a propaganda.
Oh, okay,
As a way to earn money out of it, rather than solving the true purpose. I may be a bit
Okay.
on that. I don't know the true definition, but it's something like that. So
I see.
ESG nowadays, if you see in like the West and all, some places people call it woke capitalism,
I
as
see.
using ESG as a way to not solve the real purpose, but then as a way to make money in the easy way. But I might be a bit off.
I see. Well, I think in a way,
Yeah.
it is inevitable. Some people would always do things like this.
Okay.
You can't control everybody have the same passion or the same way of looking at things. But as long as we have the majority of people who do share the vision that we have to do something on the environment, on the social well-being of staff, a good corporate governance, that is more important. Of course, there are some people who would like to do greenwashing for just publicity but I think you can't control that. We just hope that more and more people realize the importance, not just as a cost to them or as an expense to the company, but it's actually, once you do the good for the ESG, is more for your own staff benefits. Therefore, they would be able to to contribute a lot more to your business, and therefore you will be able to sustain your business for longer. So I think, yeah, it's you can't avoid it, but we try to emphasize on the better part.
Maybe better regulations in certain areas which are like directed to greenwashing or something might help, but I feel I also agree it cannot be completely removed. It's the human psychology.
Yes, it's a human. You can't control everybody's mind.
Yeah. So I feel like as we go away with it, like people's attitude will change towards they'll hopefully be more climate conscious in the future. So I feel like there will be less cases of it. But that's true. Can you guide us through about sustainability and these ESG and stuff outside Hong Kong, like globally, when you talk about the North America, Europe, and stuff like that? How can you scale and how can you what's your thought on that? And are like all the places at the same level, are giving the same kind of attention? And if so, for example, we here in the US, they're actually against it in some way, and they're actually trying to put it down. But we see Asia and China and stuff, they are actually putting it, really giving attention to it. Why is that so? And should everyone start to give attention to it equally?
I think there are definitely differences in the ESG development because of various reasons. First of all, maybe the government's policies, how the government see that as how important that is, and also how developed the country is in terms of viewing this kind of initiative. Some countries or some people still see this as expenses. Because if you're doing environmental protection, you have to do a lot of expense to control it, or to do a lot of things to make it better. So that's an expense. They are not seeing it as an investment for the future. So that's why different companies, different politicians, different governments would have different priorities. So there got to be differences.
And priorities of government will also change,
especially when you are working with a challenge between a dilemma between commercialization or general business development versus ESG. Sometimes there are conflicts, like whether you want to develop a place for economic development, but some other people are more concerned about environmental protection. So how are you going to balance that? So how the government see that as a conflict, and they try to avoid it. So yeah, I think it's really depends on the government priorities.
And we also see almost all countries nowadays are setting targets to reach net zero and stuff, to reduce their emissions as much as they can. Almost all of them want to be around 2050 or something.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think, all this that we are talking about, climate change, ESG, sustainability, do you think it is limited to 2050, or do you think it will still be relevant beyond that?
As I said, different countries might have different priorities. Some countries like China, they are very committed to bring that to 2030, 2050. They're really committed to do that. But some countries, because of their lack of resources or because of the local political environment, they probably might have delays. So it really depends on the different priorities of the government.
That's great. So great. So let's have a rapid fire. So explain ESG in 5 seconds.
In 5 sentences?
5 seconds.
Oh, 5 seconds.
It's a rapid fire. ESG.
ESG. Doing something good to the society.
Okay. Sustainability.
Whether you can continue, repeat the, sustainability is you will be able to continue for a longer period of time.
Okay.
Of time.
Okay. Entrepreneurship with sustainability. How can we link it?
Entrepreneurship with sustainability. Establishing a business with good social impact and for social goods.
Uh, how can this be different from social entrepreneurship?
Wow. I think social entrepreneurship can be a general, broader sense, but for sustainability is a social enterprise with a special focus on eco-friendly initiatives.
Oh, okay, that's great. And now I would want to ask you about the UST ENTR 3030 course that you were also the instructor along with Professor Irwin, Entrepreneurship and Social Innovation. How was how did you like it, and do you think it was impactful to the students? Could you?
I personally love this course because
Me too, actually.
oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
as a student.
Because Erwin and I sort of came up with this idea of cross-fertilizing between the two universities, where we don't just have the course concurrently, but we actually have the course co-teach together. That means the students are actually working together with the students from the other universities and mixed within a group. I think that's the thing that we try to emphasize, because when we started this idea, we were thinking about, oh, maybe we should have the same course, same syllabus, but run concurrently.
Yeah.
But I think that is not the right approach.
Yeah.
If we are doing the same thing, why don't we
Do
have
it
the same
together.
class? And instead of having City U groups and UST groups, they should be mixing together.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing that we like. And after a couple of years, we have run these courses for the last 2 years. And that's the top of mind for many of the students. They also enjoy this kind of mix and match arrangement where they would be able to learn from each other. And one thing I always like is, because City U students, they are more business students, they are more focusing on the business strategies and the overall direction. But we have a lot of UST students who are actually good in engineering, IT stuff, and all those.
Yeah.
They are doing the prototyping
Yeah,
together,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that it makes the proposal more concrete and more down to earth and more practical, because we are actually putting the concept into practice. So I think that's the whole idea of the collaboration between the two universities.
I would completely agree to that. ENTR 3030 course is a course which is more about real life, out of the class learning, and in this we get to like partner with real companies out there.
Yes.
And that is something we have to go out of our comfort zones to really explore and have that kind of exposure, solving real problems, which is, I think, very rare to find. That's why I also feel like this course is definitely every student should take in UST and CityU. Yeah, thank you so much for today's time. And
thanks for tuning in into our HKUST ENTRU podcast. Catch us on YouTube podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We hope to see you next time.